Hey son, Rauta followers and viewers. Today's band comes from Sweden, but before we get into the actual album, I'm gonna tell you a little bit of one of my favorite bands. And that band is Suicidal Tendencies from United States of America, which we actually got to interview earlier this year at Tuska 2017 festival. Now, you might wonder why I'm talking about Suicidal Tendencies here when the band in question is Dr. Living Dead from Sweden. The thing is, these two bands have a lot in common, at least when it comes to the music. So why Suicidal Tendencies is one of my favorite bands is because they are one of the rare types of bands that actually got to make 10 out of 10 albums, at least if you ask me. That, not only that, but other albums which are damn good as well. So they have a special place in my mind. Now, Dr. Living Dead has a lot to do with Suicidal Tendencies type of crossover thrash metal. And that's why I'm connecting the dots here. And this album, especially as the previous one, they are something that are strongly connected to each other. But now let's take a look how this brand new CD from Dr. Living Dead actually looks like. So this one is called Cosmic Conqueror, and it's their fourth album in 10 years of existence. As you can see, this one is covered actually with a digisleeve background, obviously having this track listing, and the same applies to the actual CD jewel case. Inside we have this theme going on with this DOC or DO Corp Cosmic Solutions, which is mentioned on the back as well as inside the CD tray. And we'll take a look in the booklet here, which is annoyingly hard for me to take off because of my non-existent nails. Okay, let's give it another shot. And finally it's out here. So this one is Cosmic Conqueror with lyrics inside as it's supposed to be. That accompanied with a group of photos showing the guys Dr. Mania, Dr. Toxic, Dr. Rad, and Dr. Slam. These guys all wearing those cool and kind of personal skull masks of sorts. That with Dr. Mania's bandana, which is yet another link to the Suicidal Tendencies style. So, meanwhile, Suicidal Tendencies is one of the originators of this kind of hardcore meets thrash metal meets funk and all that stuff, and they started all the way early 1980s. Dr. Living Dead is only 10 years old band, so it's totally different generation in metal music, so to speak. And what it makes so interesting this band, I think, is that this is just yet another old school retro band, but it's not totally new school either. This is something which I would describe as ageless, at least when it comes to thrash metal or crossover thrash metal. And why is that? These guys have put up at least four great albums, of at least two which are totally great albums, are basically mixing new and old all together and creating their own kind of music. They would be unique if it wasn't for Suicidal Tendencies, so I'm making that out. I want to underline the fact that these guys wouldn't exist in this form of a band and creating this kind of music if it wasn't for Suicidal Tendencies to pave the road before them. Now, this is not to take anything from these guys, because after all, when someone or some band creates a new kind of music, creates maybe a whole new subgenre or whatever, of course that will be followed. But in my opinion, Suicidal Tendencies has always been kind of underrated in this kind of music, what they are doing. Now, that's enough of Suicidal Tendencies, but I just want to make clear to you that if you know the band, if you have been listening to it, then you are pretty much familiar what this band is all about. And that's an interesting factor because that was one of the things that actually got me hooked with their previous album. So I probably skipped Dr. Living Dead's two first albums, maybe because it's not so great name for a band, or maybe it just was one of those bands that with their CDs that just kind of went off my radar because the thousands and thousands and thousands of metal albums, even with my kind of a short list of genres which I'm usually reviewing. But a couple of years ago, this previous album came out. Now I have to check it because my memory isn't serving me. The Sublime Gods, whatever it is, Cross the Sublime Gods. Thank you. And that was actually pretty good and good album. I got it from a friend. I gave it a spin, and I was like, "This sounds so great. This sounds so fresh. Thrash metal, kind of, with its own groovy way, and not just those typical thrash metal kind of raspy vocals, which are so typical in the genre, but also this kind of sweet, kind of a soft-spoken vocals, which are then again what Mike Muir of Suicidal Tendencies got to do a lot. Anyway, I know it's dividing people into different kind of groups. Some like it, some don't. That's okay. I always like them because I have this kind of a knack for bands that actually sound, kind of a unique. At least if it's not bad, I have a thing for that kind of stuff. So when I got the Cross the Sublime Gods a couple of years ago, I gave it a spin and I liked it. I gave it another round of spins. I was working out with it at the gym, and I was like, this is something I should have checked out previously. Now, when I went to, listen to the earlier albums, in my opinion, they were not as good, but good enough anyway to make sense that this band was kind of growing up. Now, Cosmic Conqueror is the number four on this line of discography, and I think it's their best album so far. And what makes it so great is that it's not only like they are copying their previous work, it's not like they are copycat of Suicidal Tendencies, but it's more like they are picking some of the best elements of that band and then mixing with some of the best elements of Slayer. Now, if you listen to Cosmic Conqueror's vocal work, you can clearly make kind of out that it's Tom Araya's heritage, kind of what it's sounding all the way. You're gonna have this really fast vocal lyrics going to take you with those trashy, fast-paced riffs, which are just like, I want to march, I want to fucking kill people, gonna be crazy. It's gonna make me my legs pump. It's gonna make my fist bang and all that stuff. Just what good thrash metal is all about, in my opinion. But then again, Cosmic Conqueror is also taking these Suicidal Tendencies vibes, which is more like not slow tempo, but more mid tempo parts, and this kind of like smooth, kind of like rounded edges in a way. It's just like mixing the Slayer's fast forward aggressiveness and then combining with like more modest kind of mid-tempo riffing, and then having both best of both worlds vocal style, the smooth ones and the really aggressive ones. And that is what makes Dr. Living Dead so great, in my opinion. It's versatile, it's flexible, it has so many different ideas, and they sound fresh. They sound especially fresh in these ages when so many bands are just copycatting the retro stuff. Like, yeah, let's do some Black Sabbath. Let's do that early whatever thrash metal band. Let's do this heavy metal band, and they kind of get stuck with it. And these zero unique features or personality in these kinds of bands, which kind of bores me the hell out of me. Um, but Dr. Living Dead is kind of you know having this perfect balance. It's not like they are creating the best ever thrash metal album, but it's definitely the 2017 thrash metal album, the one that actually beats the great Harlot band from Australia that came earlier this spring and was one of my favorites throughout the year. It's a great album, but Cosmic Conqueror is just taking the shit and taking the leading spot. So in my opinion, this definitely goes on my top three albums of the whole year. And it's not just only the songs, and it's not just vocal works. It's not just having those fine details and zero weaklings, zero boringness. It's also thanks to this perfect production for this kind of music anyway. Guitars are shredding strongly, but you can also hear the bass guitar, doing the stuff, like there's some strength, from the background as well. And drums are just like perfectly in tune. They are not too, sterile or anything like that, but they're just well mixed. And the vocal work is just like icing on a cake. I gotta say, I love this album. It's one of the best albums this year. If you have any trust, feeling, or love in your body, soul, or whatever, go check this out. I think this is one of the best albums this year. So I truly hope you guys and girls out there are gonna check it out. But that's all from me right now. Thank you for watching, and I'm hoping for your comments and thoughts about this album and maybe this video even. And that's all from me. Stay metal.